Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Sanhedrin Ayin Ches, Sanhedrin 78. And we're going to start on the top of 78A. One line from the top, where the Gemara is one line from the top. Today's Daf is dedicated for a Shmir for the Chayalim, Matzah for the Shvuyim, the Yeshua for Am Yisrael, on this Eis Tzara. Daf Yomi tells us, Torah Rabbanan, he called us Sar B'nei Adam B'Asar Maklos. 10 people strike a person and kill him with 10 sticks, mace. Now, each one of those blows, the Meiri says, is enough to kill the man. Whether they all strike him at the same time or whether they strike him one after the other, Baturin, they're all going to be exempt because none of them can be said to have killed him entirely. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Omer Bezachar Zeh Achron Chayev, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, if they kill one after the other, the last one is liable. And they Shakir Ves Misaso, because he brought his death closer. And Rabbi Yochanan says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Ushneim Mikra Echad Darshu. Both of them expounded the same verse. It says, V'ish ki yakeh kol nefesh adam. It says in Sefer Vayikra, a person who will strike any person, Ish ki yakeh kol nefesh, the entirety of the person. So Rabbanan Safri kol nefesh adika kol nefesh. The Rabbanan of the position, he has to strike the entire nefesh. He has to kill the entire person. So, meaning to say, Rashi says, since at the beginning other people helped him in the killing, it's not the entire nefesh in the last blow, and so therefore he's not liable, even the last person. So, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira suffer kol nefesh, kol dehu nefesh. Anyone that has a soul, afilu mitzasa, even a little bit of a soul, but where they strike him all at the same time, then he hasn't killed all of them. And so therefore, it says in the Torah, she says, Ishki akeh, not Shnayim sheku. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, you would be liable, the last one would be liable. Amarava, kol modim. Rabbi says, everybody admits, Bahora gets a treifa. Everybody admits that where he strikes a treifa, Sheu Pater, that is going to be exempt. What's a treifa? Rashi says the treifa is where the person who is killed has a hole in his trachea or in his brain, and so therefore he's clearly going to die. He's at certainty he's going to die. So everybody says if you kill such a person, you're killing a dead man, and so therefore you're exempt. But the goses b'dei shemayim, the goses, the overwhelming likelihood of the goses he's going to die, but it's not a certainty. So if it's a goses, if he's goses from heaven, so if he's a goses from heaven, and then somebody else comes along and kills him, meaning to say nobody initiated the process of hurting this man, and then somebody else comes along and kills him, everybody would say he's liable because it's considered like he entirely killed him. But lo nechuku, where is there a dispute? Going back to the Rabbanan Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the only dispute is in a circumstance begoses b'dei adam, where somebody else had struck him a blow, and the likelihood he's going to die from that blow, and he's about to die as a result of these blows, then somebody else comes along and kills him. That's the case. Begoses b'dei adam. Mar medami le'la treifa. So the Rabbanan compare it to a treifa and say he's going to be exempt. Mar medami le'la goses b'dei shemayim, which Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira compare it to a goses from heaven and say he is liable. Man medami le'la treifa. According to the Rabbanan, compare it to a treifa. My time lo medami le'la goses. Why do they not compare it to a goses b'dei shemayim? Because they say goses b'dei shemayim goes ave b'maisa. So what's the reason why the Rabbanan, to compare it to a treifa, why don't they compare it to goses b'dei shemayim? And so therefore say he would be liable. So the Gemara says, what's the reason why they don't compare him to a goses b'dei shemayim and say he's liable? Because they say because they say by the goses b'dei shemayim he did an action on him, and that's what killed him. But and so therefore he's liable. But in this case, this person is a dead man already. He's a treifa. And the one who compares it to Gosis Shemayim, my time treifa. Why doesn't he compare it to a treifa? So he says simonim. He says because in the case of a because he says the treifa has actually the simanim are already cut, and for sure he's going to die. But in this case, in this case, the simanim, the trach in the esophagus or the brain are not cut, so he's not for sure going to die. Good morning, Hobbs. We're on Ayin Ches, Amin Aleph, around a third of the way down. Tani Tano Kamei de Rav Sheshes. So there was a Tano who taught in front of Rav Sheshes, or it wasn't a Tano who taught in front of Rav Sheshes. Somebody said over a teaching in front of Rav Sheshes, because Rav Sheshes was an Amora. So a Tana really means he repeated over a Tanaitic source. It says, "Ve'ishki akeh kol nefesh adam." It says in the pasuk, a man who will strike the entirety of the soul, which was the pasuk that Rabbi Yochanan said was a dispute between the Rabban and Rabbi Yehuda and Sarah. So the Tana, the one who repeated this over in front of Rabbi Shesha, says it means it comes to include the following case: somebody strikes his friend. It wasn't enough to kill him. Somebody else comes along and kills him. And then under those circumstances, shu chayev, that the second person is going to be responsible. So obviously in that case, where the second person strikes him and the first blow didn't have enough to kill him, obviously he's going to be chayev pshita. So what's he even saying? So we have to amend that text. It's talking about a case where he had enough to kill him. The first guy strikes a blow. He would have died from it. The guy he struck would have died, but still, somebody else comes along and finishes him off. Shu chayev. The second person is liable with stomach Rabbi Yehuda and Sarah. That's actually the teaching. It's anonymous prices like Rabbi Yehuda and Sarah. Says Amar Rava. However, I guess a treifa pot or somebody who kills a treifa. A treifa, we said, is somebody who has a hole in their trachea or their brain, and they're certainly going to die. But somebody who comes along and kills them, they're exempt. But if there was a person who himself was a treifa, who killed somebody in front of the court, chayev, he's going to be liable. He's going to be liable. Shelo b'fnei bezdin, if it was not in front of the bezdin, then we're going to say he's going to be exempt. Potter. Why? Because it's testimony that cannot be impeached. It cannot be turned into zolim testimony. And any testimony that cannot be impeached is not called a testimony. So why? Because if the people come along and say that he was in a different place at a different time, he couldn't have testified, then we're going to say that under those circumstances, they will not be punished with death, because hold on one second. There's two ways to explain this. The first way to explain it is that since they were trying to impeach a person who's a treifa, he's a gavra katila. And so therefore you can't apply to the people who tried to impeach his testimony, she'll do to them like he tried to do. And some say it's like they didn't do anything at all. Anyway, but the bottom line is that since his testimony can't be, the people who come to testify against him, wait, did I skip a line? Amar Rav Orgas a treifa potter. Utreifa sharag b'fnei bezdin chayev. Shalom b'fnei bezdin potter. Rav explains, b'fnei bezdin, if he testifies in front of the bezdin, he's going to be liable. D'chsevu v'yarta rabbin kerbecha. you have to uproot the evil. And they saw the Bezdin saw him that he was a murderer. But let's say he killed Shalom b'fnei Bezdin, but he killed in front of witnesses, and those witnesses come to testify against him. Potter, he's going to be exempt. Why? Because those witnesses are impossible to be impeached. You can't impeach those witnesses because they were coming to kill a dead man. And so therefore, even if they're found to be Eidim Zomim, we can't fulfill the principle you should do to them like they tried to do. Because since they were only lying about a treifa, and he's already killed, they won't be killed. And any testimony that cannot be impeached in his own manner is not considered a testimony. And now Rava says a similar law. Somebody who is basically sodomizes a male who sodomizes another male, but that other male was a treifa, he's going to be chayev. Treifa sharava, because he did the action, as the Gemara is going to say. Rashi says, because he had the benefit. It's not what he did to the other person, it's what he himself did. But Treifa Sharava Bifnei Bezdin, but the Treifa who himself was Treifa, but the Treifa himself who was Roveya, meaning to say, in front of a Bezdin Chayev, he's going to be liable for death. Shalom Bifnei Bezdin, but if it was not in front of the Bezdin, he's going to be Potter. Bifnei Bezdin, if he did in front of the Bezdin, he's chayev because the Chsevi Bar Tara Mikerbecha, and the Bezdin saw him do this sin of sodomizing. But Shalom Bifnei Bezdin, but not in front of the Bezdin, but in front of the witnesses, Potter. But not in front of the witnesses, he's exempt because it's testimony that can't be impeached. So the Gemara says, why do you need both cases? The case of the treifa who murders and the treifa who is roveya. Isn't this the exact same case? Gemara says, no, we needed to teach us the chiddush of the Aroveas a treifa tzrichoy, the one who sodomizes the treifa. You might have said, since the treifa is like a dead man, it's like somebody who was sodomizing a dead person. We potter and he should be exempt. Kamash Malan, we say no, then we shema no. Because it's because of ana, and this person has ana. Well, now I have a question. Well, if that's the case, well, then you should be chayev also if you're mishamei shemeis. But they don't. I don't see anybody asking that question. Okay, so now we go on. Amarava Adam Sheidu B'Treifa. Rava says witnesses that testify about a treifa that he violated a sin, that you're liable for death, and then he was sentenced to death, and afterwards vuhuzmu, and afterwards they're found to be false testifiers. Ein erag, and they're not going to be killed because we say vasitem kasher samam. Because they only tried to kill a treifa, so it's like he's already dead, so we don't punish them. But ede treifa shehuizmu, but witnesses who themselves were treifa, and they testified about a healthy person that he's liable for death, and afterwards they are found to be impeached, nerag, and they're killed, because we said it will be arta ara mikrabach. You have to uproot the evil. Ravashi argues with this. You had a question, Hobbs? Ravashi Amar afilu ede treifa shehuizmu ein nerag, and ufisha einon bezomei zomvin. He says no, ede treifa who testified, they're not going to be, even if they're found to be zomin, they're not going to be killed because somebody comes along and testifies falsely about them, they won't be killed because they're testifying falsely about treifa, and treifa is already dead, and so therefore they no fit within the category of zomim, and so therefore they themselves won't be killed. But Amarabba, sure treifa, okay, let the ox, which is itself a treifa, sha'arag, who kills a person, chayev, it's going to be liable for death. For sure, show adam treifa, sha'arag, pater. But an ox of a person who himself is a treifa who kills is exempt. My time. And what's the reason that if the owner of the ox is a treifa, the ox is not stoned? It says in Parashas Mishpatim, the ox is stoned and the owner is put to death. So we see that the Torah compares the death of the ox to the death of the owner. That we say just like the owner dies, so too does the ox die. The kohecha, the karina bay, the gamba, love you must, and wherever the Torah tells us the owner will die, karina bay, ashor yisakel. And wherever the Torah tells us that the owner will die, we also have to say the ox will be stoned. The kohecha, the lo karina bay, the gamba, love you must. Wherever we don't say the owner will die, then the ox will not be stoned. Lo karina bay, ashor yisakel. And so therefore, if the person is since the owner of the ox is a treifa, and if he kills a person not in front of the bezdin, he's not going to be killed by witnesses. Therefore, the ox is not going to be put to death under those circumstances. Rav argues about this law about a shore that's a treifa that kills. Rav Ashi Amar afilu shore treifa nami sharag. Even if the ox himself is a treifa, if it kills a person, he's exempt. Pater. My time even the ilu balam avul patire. Sure, nami pater. Since if the owner himself would be exempt, the ox is also exempt under those circumstances. Says the Mishnah, it said that if you incite a dog to bite somebody, you're not liable for death. So when you look at the words of these Tanaim, but Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a person, because Rabbi Yehuda argued and he said if you put the snake on somebody and bring the snake there to bite him, you're going to be liable. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Aras Nachash Bein Shinav, who omeid, that the venom of the snake stands between his teeth, and so therefore, if you stick the teeth of the snake on the person, then the venom is what's killing the person, and that's like somebody who sticks a knife basically into somebody else's belly, and even though the knife is killing him, the person is liable. Fikach makish. So therefore, if besayif v'nachash patur. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we'll look back at the text of the Mishnah on the previous page. We just have to read their positions again. Hold on. So it says, "Hishich boas anachash," that if you incite the snake, Rabbi Yehuda says you're liable. Chachamim say you're potrin. So therefore, we say like this: since the venom is between the teeth, that if you incite him, that the person who incites him is like he's sticking the knife into him, and he's going to be liable, and the snake himself is going to be exempt because the snake did not have any intent there. But according to the Chachamim, who say that a person is exempt for placing the snake, for inciting the snake to bite somebody, aras nachash me'atzmahu meki, the snake spits out the venom on his own, and lefikach nachash b'stila, the snake gets stoning v'amekish, and the one who incites the snake is going to be exempt. Pater. Well, they're saying who's the one who's responsible. Well, according to the Chachamim, it is conscious. According to the Chachamim, the snake is conscious and the snake has intent, and so therefore the snake is going to get stoned. That's the Gemara's position. That's the Rabbanan's position, that the snake is responsible for his actions. I mean, you can read it symbolically always, but here in the literal reading, the Rabbanan are holding the snake liable. It is interesting to say maybe the snake symbolizes something else, which clearly it does. Let's see, very interesting. So let's see what the Mishnah says. Hamakes chavero, somebody who strikes his friend, bein be'evan, bein be'egro. If you strike your friend with a stone or with your fist, v'amdu l'misa, and then you evaluate him that he's going to die. V'hekel mima shahaya. But then he improved, and afterwards he deteriorated, and he dies. He's going to be liable because he died from the same wound. Rabbi Nechemia Omer Potter, no, he's exempt. Because we're going to say that there's legs to the matter that maybe he didn't die as a result of the initial attack. Rabbi Nechemia makes the following drasha. It says, Im yakum v'salech pachutz. It says in Parashas Mishpatim, two people are fighting. One strikes his friend with a stone or fist, and he doesn't die, and he falls and he's sick. If he gets up and he walks outside, Al Mishan Tov and he come back. If he walks on a stick, then the person who struck him is not responsible if this person dies. But why do you have to say that he's exempt? The pasuk already said he's exempt. Would you ever think that this guy's walking in the marketplace and this guy will be liable for execution? Elash, we're talking about a specific case, says the Gemara. We're on top of Ayin base. This is talking about a case where they evaluated to die. He improved. And then he died. And this is like the position of Rabbi Nechemia. That's what the pasuk is referring to. The Rabbanan hai v'nikam makeh my darash. But what do the Rabbanan do with this verse? Nikam makeh. Melamed. So what they say is chov shenoto. We take the person who struck him and we put him into the prison to see if this person who we struck is going to die or not. And if he dies, we hold him responsible. And only once he's completely healed will we let him go. Rabbi Nechemia, how do we know this law that you need to tie up the person in a holding cell until we see if this person will die from this wound or not? Yalaf mi Mikoshesh. She learned it out from Mikoshesh. It says they found the Mikoshesh who was gathering wood and they placed him into a prison. Kilo Paresh Mayaselo. They didn't know what to do, so they held him there. So we see from here that when you have a person you don't know what to do with him, you need to put him into a holding cell. Rabbanan nami lo from Mikoshesh. Why didn't the Rabbanan learn out this law from Mikoshesh? The Gemara says no. The Mikoshesh, the Rabbanan said it was clear that he was worthy of death. Mikoshesh bar katalo. Just Moshe lo avi yada katalei b'may. Moshe didn't know how they would kill him. And we're going to say, so therefore they tied him up. So that he wouldn't run away before they killed him. That doesn't necessarily teach us anything about the law about a person if we don't know what the punishment is. Like this guy who struck a person and the person is still lying there unconscious. Mar says Rabbi Nechemia, Yalav mi Megadef. Why didn't the Rabbi Nechemia learn this law? That you tie up the person until you know what to do with him. From a Megade, from the person who cursed the Ben Ishai Israelis, who cursed Hashem in Parashas Emor, the law have a Yada Bar Katolo, because they didn't know what his punishment was in Chavshu, and they tied him up. So why didn't they learn it out from there? So the Gemara says, so Rabbi Nechemia learns out this law that you tie up a person who's liable for death from the Megadef. That's where you learn out this law that if you don't know what you do to him or not, you tie him up, because he doesn't learn it out from the case of Nika Makav, because he says Nika Makav is that you're only liable if he never recovers. So therefore, Rabbi Nechemia learns out the law from the Megadef, that if you don't know what to do to him, Rabbanan Megadef Parashai. So the Rabbanan don't want to learn out from the Megadef because they say that was just a one-time thing. And the Gemara now brings the Brisa that proves that by the Mikoshesh, they had no doubt that he was supposed to die, but they just didn't know which type of death. Because Moshe knew that the Mikoshesh was with death. Says one who desecrates Shabbos who put to death. They didn't know which type of death. As it states, Kilo Porash. They didn't know what to do to him. Meaning they knew what to do. They knew they had to do something. They didn't know how to do it. But by the one who blessed him, God, they said, it doesn't say lo parash. They said they had to go ask God. They didn't know anything there. They didn't know what to do. So in the Shut Pei Sha'arim, he brings a difficulty. How can it be Moshe didn't know the law of the Mekosh Megadev? Didn't he learn everything at Sinai? And so he answers based upon a Yalkut Shimoni. That it happened, that the Mikoshesh happened before they left Egypt. Excuse me, before they came to Sinai, after they left Egypt, in the 22nd of Iyar. And in Torah's Kohanim, it says that the Mikoshesh and the Gadef happened at the same time. And so both of them were before Matan Torah. And so therefore it wasn't fully explained yet. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. So Gemara says, Bishlamo Rabbi Nechemia makes sense according to Rabbi Nechemia. What does he say, Nika Makeh? That it has to say that he has to totally recover. And if he doesn't totally recover, if he ends up dying in the end from that blow, he's going to be Chayev Misa. Therefore, the Torah says that you have to value him twice. Chad, when it says Lo Yamus, I'm doing Misa. The Chaya one is where they thought he was going to die and he lived. The Chad, I'm doing Misa. And the second time it says, V'nikam Makeh teaches us that if they value him for death and then he recovered, he's exempt. Meaning if they evaluate him twice. But our Rabbanan Treyum Dini Lamali, the Rabbanan would say that if he recovers the first time, he's no longer chayev. Why does it say twice that they evaluate him? Like Mar says, Chadam do misa v'chaya. So one is to tell us in the case where they evaluate him for death and then he lived, then he's pater. V'chadam do l'chayim u'meis. It's also teaching us another chiddush that if they evaluate him that he was going to live and then he died, that he doesn't get punished with death, but he has to pay shevas and report, like they evaluated from the beginning. Rabbi Nechemia, Amdu Chayim V'meis, if they evaluate him to live and he died, then he's exempt from death. Lo tzarech kra, we don't need a pasuk. Shara yatzami bezin zakeh. The court already found him innocent, and once the court finds him innocent, you can't bring him back. Dan Rabbana Namakes Chavero V'amdu Misa V'chaya. Let's say they evaluate him, he's going to die and he's going to live. Pocher no so. Everybody says he's exempt. Amdu a misa, but let's say they value him to die. And then he recovered, and so made shenu with money, and they evaluated him a second time to see how much he has to pay. And if afterwards he got sick and died, we follow the second evaluation, which is for money. That and he's exempt from death. So under those circumstances, once you evaluate him for money, he has to pay the valuation of the money. Whereas the Chum say there's no valuation after the valuation. Meaning to say, the second evaluation that they evaluated him when he got better takes him away from the first evaluation. And so therefore he's within the first evaluation, and if he dies from that illness, he's going to be liable for death. That's the Chacham's position. Whereas Nechemia would say, no, once you evaluate him for money, he's going to be exempt. Tanya Idach. So they evaluate him to die. And afterwards, we saw he got better. Then we evaluate him to live, and as a result of this, he's exempt from death. But once we evaluate him for life, and if you evaluate him for life and then he got sick, we don't evaluate him again for death. Meaning, say we don't contradict it. I'm doing misa. Let's say they evaluate him for death, and then he recovered. We evaluate him again a second time for money. If afterwards he dies, you pay the pain and the damages to the heirs. And this is the position of Rabbi Nechemia. At what point do you pay him? Meaning to say, from the time that he was struck. Meaning to say, what was he worth prior to the struck? With stomach Rabbi Nechemia. This is exactly the position of Rabbi Nechemia, that he's exempt from death once he recovers one time. Even though the Rabbanan say he's still going to be chayav. Okay, we'll stop here. This is the daf for today. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.